Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of I Hate Your Taste in Movies. This is a movie podcast where we play Russian roulette with our favorite films and watch the opinions fly. You can follow us on Twitter at I Hate Your Taste and on Instagram at Hate Your Taste Pod. I'm Jackie.
I'm Jen.
I'm Austin.
Let me tell you, people, you're in for a treat this week.
Can I just say, I thought you were going to open with some sort of like dangling off a cliff pun or something.
No. I mean, I went with guns. And you know what? That's partly the theme of this movie. That is a great idea, though. This is a movie podcast where we make our friends watch our favorite movies and then have them dangle off the precipice of excitement. Okay. Guess what, you guys? You're very lucky. Because I did you a huge favor, and I chose a movie that no sane person cannot thoroughly enjoy. And that movie is Cliffhanger. The shining light of heaven on us all, because this is a fantastic movie. Cliffhanger, you guys. What did you know about Cliffhanger?
I knew that it had traumatized Jackie as a child.
Fact.
You had shown me the opening scene before.
No doubt. I'm like, watch this, it's horrible.
Yeah. This ruined my childhood. Watch it. Okay. Full disclosure, I put off watching this until I had no desire to watch this at all. And I maybe phoned it in on my guess. I wrote mountains, cliffs, hanging precariously off of them.
Brava! You nailed exactly 10% of the movie.
Yeah.
Nice.
But still, a solid 10%. You got that 10% down pat.
There were mountains. There were cliffs. There were people hanging precariously off of them.
True.
I wasn't
a
wrong.
whole other plot happening, but that's not important. Jen, go.
Yeah, so I didn't know anything about this movie. You had never shown me that opening scene, so I guess we're not as good as friends. Whatever. Fine.
I needed a way for you to find this out, so surprise.
So all I knew was that it had Sylvester Stallone and it was called Cliffhanger. So for some reason in my head, I started to make up a version of the movie where it was like the movie 127 Hours, where a guy's like trapped in rocks.
Would have been a better movie.
I remembered that this was a Jackie pick, which meant there was going to be terrorists. So my new version...
Yes, this is so right. Yeah.
Right?
Thank you.
My new idea, I put 127 hours, but with terrorists. Stallone is a climber who accidentally stumbles on their lair or like finds hidden nukes, but then he's stuck on the cliff with no equipment or any way to contact anyone. So he's trying to escape the bad guys and then get back to civilization to warn them.
Love that you went to nukes.
Yeah.
Because that's the one thing this movie might be missing.
Well, I was thinking maybe like Broken Arrow style, people hiding the nukes in the desert or like national park or whatever that was. I was picturing like a cave in the cliff with nukes in it.
Yeah, take
Stallone
Broken
just
Arrow.
accidentally climbs by.
What the hell? Yeah, if you have Broken Arrow in one hand and Cliffhanger in the other hand, put those two together. My new favorite movie. Seriously, I would watch that.
So you kind of like weaved in and out of the correct plot. Like you got there, you touched on it, you backed away, you came back.
I am gonna give Jen a higher percent though. I think she's at like 25% because there are terrorists.
There are terrorists.
I was just like, again, I was so proud of myself when I was like, well, it's a Jackie movie, so it's probably a terrorist plot. And then there was, and I was like, I nailed it. Of course there was.
It's almost like we've been doing this for almost a year.
It's almost like I'm a
wow.
total cliche, and I can never surprise you guys, and we'll never try. Just like, look at this thing I love. Also love it. Wait, you hate it? My soul. All right, I'll run down Cliffhanger for the one or two listeners who maybe didn't see this, even though everyone should have. For this movie, Cliffhanger, Sylvester Stallone, with his intensely heavy muscular physique, is a rock climbing rescue man who works for the park services with his friends, and they basically help people who are stranded, rock climbing, mountain climbing, hurt in the woods. The movie starts out with the big conflict where somebody dies, and it's our main character Gabe's fault, perhaps, or not really his fault, but his friend thinks it's his fault. Anyway, he has a falling out with his friend Hal. We'll get into it. Broad strokes here, people. Broad strokes. basically they have a falling out. Gabe is moving away. At the same time, we have our bad guy, Eric Quaylen, who is planning to rob a treasury plane that is flying old bills. Something about bills used in specific types of banking, but they're all $1,000 bills. Anyway, the total is $100 million, and he's going to steal it. So with his crew of rowdy, rebel, bad guys, they take down the plane, but unfortunately there's issues and it crashes. So they're all stranded in the mountains. The cases full of money are scattered about, but they have tracking beacons. And so they basically fake an emergency, get the rescue guys to come up and basically hold them hostage and say, help us find this money. And that's the plot. Lots of stuff happens, doesn't go according to plan. Gabe / Sylvester Stallone's not just going to let this happen. Because guess what, guys? He's a hero. So that is it. I mean, that's Cliffhanger in a nutshell. Did I miss anything?
No, I think you hit the...
There's a tiny romantic subplot with Sylvester Stallone's ex-girlfriend, but I mean, honestly, just forget that part. Not important.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty apt summary. Although I will say, like, as you were just describing that they were getting the plane full of, like, $1,000 bills, I'm like, oh, that's what was that. That's what those were. I was like, it was just money? Like, I couldn't understand what it was for.
Oh my gosh, you're so cute.
No, I knew they were stealing it, but I'm like, why was
sure, plane money, of course.
They did not do a good job of explaining what was actually happening.
This plane just had a briefcase full of money for some reason, and like some FBI guy was watching it, and then also some corrupt government guy, and I'm just like, why are we flying money around?
You guys missed it because there's like a quadruple play that happens on the treasury plane.
No, I got it.
Okay. So I'll just explain. Yeah, basically this is money that has been used in offshore big banking transactions, but was never into the general circulation, and is now being like decommissioned and burnt or something. It's not supposed to be normal legal tender, but it is. So anyway, it was just basically like, we use this for this deal. Now it's being done. We're gonna go burn it in the mountains somewhere, I guess.
Sorry, I caught what happened on the plane in terms of the action. That was very defensive when you said that. I'm sorry, but
did you though, or were you just like, ugh,
I just didn't quite understand. I mean, I do want to get into like talking about the villains and their plan and everything, but like I had a vague grasp of like, okay, this money is legal, but like not really, and no one ever steals it because it's hard to steal from a plane, and that's the like only explanation we got on that.
Yeah, they also make a throwaway comment that no one tries to steal it because it would be caught as not being actual right money. But they also say that Eric Quaylen has so many contacts because he's an international thief that he'll be able to pass it off somewhere, which, okay, sure. He's no James Bond, this John Lithgow. But let's start at the beginning. So now we have the plot. I want to talk about the thing about this movie that stands out the most to me, and I think most people who've ever seen this movie, which is the incredibly intense first 14 odd minutes. Like, this movie does not ramp up. It flings you off the edge of a cliff.
Balcony.
Yeah, that's what damn it. Jesus. Why? It's so perfect. I hate you. I know you did that on purpose. You chose violence. It's not cool. But all right, we're just going to start. So the movie opens and you're seeing Sylvester Stallone basically free soloing a huge mountain for no reason.
Yeah, can we like discuss their setup? Because basically his search and rescue friend had gone hiking or rock climbing with his new girlfriend, but the search and rescue friend, played by Michael Rooker, like hurt his leg or something, so they were stranded on the top of something. So Sylvester Stallone is like free solo climbing up while his girlfriend and their older friend Frank is just chilling in a helicopter. And I was like, is this how search and rescue works? We're like, they're over there. I'm going to helicopter to them. You climb.
100% no. And also, it would have taken him 1,000,000 hours to get up to where they were, whereas the helicopter's like, oh, yeah, cool, 10 minutes. Yeah. But then they explain this by saying that it's too windy for the helicopter to do an appropriate rescue. So they need him to basically have Sylvester Stallone climb up and meet them, and then they string a cable between what they're calling the towers, which is like these rock formations. So they're at the top of one tower, they string the cable to the other tower, and the helicopter like either hovers or lands, I'm not 100% clear on that, in a bigger area of the tower. So yeah, the gist of it is they have to get on this cable and slide over to the other tower. Now, they're all very casual about this. They're all like, hey, this is an average day at the office. Ha ha, silly jokes, which makes you understand so clearly that something's going to go terribly wrong.
Yes.
Like, you shouldn't be laughing about this. Ha ha.
Especially, like, okay, obviously it starts with this, and you're like, someone's gonna die. And then the friend who's injured goes across fine, and then the girlfriend is just like, Sylvester Stallone, we'll see you next week for dinner. We'll have all this fun together. And I'm like, she's gonna die.
Yeah, she's like, I'm so scared, but I trust you. Jesus Christ. And also, the boyfriend, the injured boyfriend, who's the point of all this, he pretends to, like, fall off the mountain to screw with his girlfriend. I hate this guy so much, but you can tell, you're like, oh, okay. He's so cavalier about this. It's not a big deal that his girlfriend's definitely going to die. Like, they laid it out like a carpet.
Yeah.
Sorry, Austin, I feel like you've been trying to say something and I keep interrupting you with my enthusiasm.
No, I feel like they did a good job of kind of setting the scene right away. Like, we know these guys they're casual about this high stakes rescue because they've done it before. Like, they're confident in their abilities. Like, I think it's supposed to kind of be putting you at ease, and as well as the girl, what's her name? Sarah? Did I make that up?
No, Sarah.
Yeah. So, I got it. I thought it was effective. I was surprised that was the first scene of the movie. I was like, oh, maybe they're just like typical day in the work, typical work day. But, so I didn't realize that scene that you'd showed me like a couple years ago was the first scene of the movie. I thought it was really effective. I thought it was a good scene, and then I wanted more on that. I wanted a drama about him recovering from the trauma of that event.
He does, but by shooting bad guys. I feel like, again, common theme. Damaged guy realizes, like, the value of life and stuff by killing people.
See, you know how Jen always comes into my movies? Like, I wanted this, like, Cabaret. Like, I wanted this movie with just more Nazis and less music.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so I wanted the, like, hard-hitting drama about, like, PTSD and recovering from feeling at fault in an accident. But
then you were like, it's a Jackie pick, so I won't expect that, right? Like, you managed
so
your expectations.
I want like a drama with fewer explosions and less strange physics. And
we'll
much
never
less
get
guns.
that.
No.
I get what you mean, though, because I also found this opening scene, like, very effective. It was really tense. I did not enjoy it. And then the rest of the movie kind of just turns into a more generic, like, action movie, but this time they're climbing mountains. So I was kind of like, I feel like you missed a lot of that, like, suspense that they got from, her dangling to her death. Like, I thought there was going to be maybe more scenes, like, of that ilk, like, more danger from the setting. And I don't know if they really capitalized on it as well as they did. And again, that first scene, I, like, texted you guys, and I was like, I forgot that I don't love heights, but I'm not loving heights in this scene. When they're, like, over her head going down, she's, like, dangling on a thread. If that was me, I would just die. Like,
and the fact that she was very
to climb back.
Yeah, the fact that she kept saying, "I don't want to die. I don't want to die." Like, it was,
and it was long. Like, it was an extended scene of her dangling by her fingertips over 4,000 feet of empty air. They make sure to say that it's 4,000 feet up.
Right, and you also see the teddy bear fall first, right? So you kind of get a sense of like what that fall is. Like, it was.
To be honest, so we've talked about this scene before again, how it traumatized me as a child. I literally saw this when I was like, I don't know, 8 or 10, and it was the only scene I saw was the first scene. And I was like, I am out. No, thank you. And I hid behind a chair. I remember very distinctly hiding behind a chair, and my parents couldn't get me out. But I will say, when I watched it this time, because I've seen it a couple times since, but I always kind of don't pay attention to that scene because I'm like, I know what this is about, not important. But this time I'm like, I'm going to watch it. I'm going to force myself to watch it. And I totally watched it. I was so incredibly tense and it was so good. Now I'm fully on board with the scene. I watched it like 2 more times just so I could be like, it is so hard to watch. It's so difficult and good. And you're right. I think the most heartbreaking point is when she's like, I don't want to die. And you're like, oh.
Yeah, like it's just everyone's aware of the situation. Everyone knows what's going to happen. And there's nothing they can do about it. So we didn't even really talk about it. So she, like, Hal gets across, no problem. Sarah starts going. She's nervous from the start. And Gabe, Sylvester Stallone, is encouraging her. And so she starts going across, and then her harness starts to snap or starts to break and come undone. And she starts to dangle. Sylvester Stallone climbs across to try to grab her and holds her for a long time. Meanwhile, Hal is like yelling at him like he wanted to go, which he has an injured knee. Like at first I was like, Hal should go because he needs someone else like on the other end. Like the cable's attached to the mountain. Shouldn't someone be monitoring that, right?
Well, sorry, Hal was actually saying, I'll send my harness out. He wasn't going to go out.
Oh, that's smarter. I missed that. That makes more sense. Because I was like, well, no, he would have to go because... But still, he couldn't go back out. Like, Sylvester Stallone would have to be out there, right?
So if Hal had sent his harness out, was Sarah just supposed to grab onto that?
I kind of think that's what they were implying.
Oh, okay.
She would be able to, like, hook her arm into maybe the pelvis kind of section, and maybe that would have... Then Sylvester Stallone could have gone out once she was more secure.
That makes more sense.
But I think the reason they did that is to make... That's the big falling out with Hal and Gabe, is, like, you didn't make the right choice in the moment. But honestly, I think... Let's be honest, there was really no choice. He almost saved her. And the reason she ends up falling to her death is like her hand slips out of her glove.
Yeah.
Like he's holding her hand and her hand slips out of the glove. So like very clearly from the beginning, it's no one's fault.
Yes. But there's just a lot of emotion on each of their parts. Hal being like, if we had done it my way, maybe she could have been saved. Gabe being like, I tried my best and I blame myself already. I don't need you also blaming me. Sarah being like, I am dead. Thanks for nothing.
Oh man, and the scene of her falling. So they zoom really far out first, and you see this actress or stunt person fall like a good 20 feet. Like it is a big, long fall. And then they have a fairly realistic dummy. And a little green screeny. Austin's laughing already. She didn't like it, did she?
As soon as she let go, I was like, and I'm out. I just immediately started laughing. I thought the fall itself was terrible.
I thought it was good. And I also I could see what they were trying to do when you see from Gabe's perspective of her falling and she's like screaming like his name.
Yeah.
That'll haunt you for the rest of your life for sure. But yeah, I mean, it's 90s. So the green screen's kind of terrible, and basically there's at one point she's obviously standing in like a wind tunnel just like waving her arms around, but scared the crap out of me.
Oh no,
it's so tense.
Totally. And I mean, I still like the scene. Like I feel like it didn't necessarily negate it, but I mean that was a theme throughout the whole movie, that some of the effects are hilarious.
I mean, that's a pretty good segue into the world of this film. There's a lot to speak about the world of this film because there's so many things that are so absurd. I don't even know where to start. Like how cold temperatures have no effect on anyone.
Yeah. This is a great, like, little path you want to go down. And I also have a question that occurred to me when I was watching this. Because they were talking about how there's a storm, but a storm didn't seem to be occurring in all of the parts of the park. Which means it's a very large park taking up a lot of space, which absolutely happens across the US and Canada. Yet the search and rescue team was 4 people.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yes. I think at one point they said something about 100 miles. They said 100 miles? I don't know if they were already within the park, but like that at least tells me that even if it's not 100 miles, it is a big ass park.
Yeah,
So,
and they do mention that there's like state people who also work. So I'm assuming like maybe it's different sections or like they all work together.
Yeah, because
so
I wondered about that. But then at the end when the FBI guys are in their helicopter, they're like, oh, we called the other search and rescue people and their helicopter has issues so they can't come. So I'm like, how bare bones is this park staff that you call another helicopter and it's not working?
On that topic, one thing that bothered me was it's been almost a year, I guess, since the accident, and Gabe's been out of town and he's just come back and he reconnects with Jess, who's his ex-girlfriend, and she was like on the helicopter during the accident, and they have this like confrontation, and confrontation's a bit harsh, but like she kind of gives him shit. And I do want to talk about Jess later when we talk about characters because I really liked her, but she says something about how, after the fact, whenever the villains have crashed and like she's trying to get Gabe to do this last rescue with them because Hal went up alone, and she's like, you need to help. You're the only one with emergency medical training.
Oh, yeah!
Yeah.
But I think it wasn't that he was the only one with emergency medical training. He was the only one who could climb and also had emergency medical training.
I don't know. She
Which
said
either way is not good. Because you're in a mountainous range.
He's been gone almost a year. What have you been doing without the one person that has emergency medical training?
That's true. 8 months. True. Very close to a year. Also, I am on Jen's side. I remember her saying you're the only one who can make this climb and has the training.
I feel like that's not good enough.
Still not good. Still not good.
Yeah, I'm with you, because like I said, this park is all mountains, so like you always have to climb. So like, what good is it like calling up and being like, when you come down here, I'll bandage you up.
Yeah.
You, but just slide down.
Here's a toboggan.
Made of humans.
We'll talk about the human toboggan later.
We will get to the human toboggan.
Spoiler alert, might be a high point.
And it's also my new wrestling name, the human toboggan. But yeah, it's very true. In this world of this massive park, there's 2 men who can climb, 1 woman helicopter pilot, and an old helicopter pilot dude who can't really do much. Like, he's an old timer. So
yeah, seems like
not the best situation.
Cusp of retirement kind of situation.
Yeah, like he's maybe doing this in his spare time was kind of the vibe.
Yeah.
Totally like, oh, I did this in Nam and I'm just kind of like.
Yeah.
So, but in this world where planes are flying over, okay, and dropping these containers of money, there's 3 of them. And yet they land in areas that they can easily walk to in like a couple hours. Like, they're these, if you drop anything from a plane, okay, it's gonna fall really very far apart from each other. Like, it's just, that doesn't happen. They don't land in a little huddle.
See, this is great, because I did have questions about this. I figured we would get to a lot of, our questions about the physics of the movie, where I was trying to figure out how far apart these cases were, and how far apart they were from the plane, how much time it was actually taking them to get to each thing, because I was assuming, like, this has to be a couple of days, but no one is stopping to eat or drink, and also, in general, no one has any food or water with them, and is okay with all of these extreme hikes.
Okay, so this is very accurate. So, when the plane crashes, it is multiple minutes after the cases go out. Okay, so that is, we're talking miles.
Yes.
At the minimum.
Is it? Because did the cases, sorry, I can't remember, did the cases make it to the secondary plane?
No,
kind
they
of.
don't.
They dangle from the secondary plane.
Yeah.
So
the cable snaps. Now, there is a cable connecting them all 3, but they separate, and you can see that when they drop, and then they watch them drop, and then they make some pithy comments about dropping. And they're like, oh, well, that's bad. And they talk for a couple minutes, and then they crash. So that's
you're totally right.
Time has definitely elapsed, and time in a plane is like a lot of time on the ground. So the fact that they are able to walk from the plane to the cases, I'm immediately like, no, none of these people are actually wearing the appropriate shoes. Okay, can we just start off?
It's a good place to start on the...
Yeah. And like, I mean, again, this is something I was thinking as the movie was going on. They, like, Sylvester Stallone and Michael Rooker, they're like the search and rescue guys. So they know what they're doing. They know how to climb and hike and are used to it. And then all of the criminals aren't. But they're still able to go all the exact same places with them at the exact same pace. And I'm like, what?
And they're wearing like light winter jackets and jeans and no hats, no gloves, no scarves.
They're also very antagonistic towards the 2 people who are their only hopes.
Yeah, no. It's the whole movie is, I mean, it's a Sylvester Stallone movie, so it's machismo. It is toxic masculinity. All these people do the like stereotypical macho thing and end up dying because of it. Like, it's all about dick measuring and shooting each other. So you can't expect much from these guys. Obviously, they're terrible, but it is very interesting that they can accomplish these feats in the middle of the mountains in the middle of winter, and we're just supposed to believe it.
Can we get into what the actual plan of the bad guys was? Because I had issues. Like, I understood they were robbing a plane, and then it crashes, and their money is strewn about the forest. And then their next step was they, like, called search and rescue pretending to be lost hikers so that they could kidnap the search and rescue guys to find them the money and then steal a helicopter and helicopter to, I don't know, Mexico?
Sounds like you didn't misunderstand anything.
That was it. Yeah, perfection.
Okay.
So, first of all...
Maybe I understand the plan, and maybe I just think it's a dumb plan.
Yes.
Okay. First of all, I mean, the plan they end up going with is, like, plan F. Like, plan A is... connect the two planes by cables. Everything happens by cables in this movie. Just FYI, cables are very important. The true star.
I was going to say the real star.
But they never hold and everything falls, so...
Well, only one cable technically fell. The other time it was a harness, please. Like, but yeah, so they connect the planes with the cable. They, like, shoot the cases of money down. So plan A is accept the cases, fly our plane away. Plan B...
But then, sorry, that second plane that they took the money from, that was going to crash, and they were just going to be like, something went wrong on that plane. Ignore the fact that all the bodies have bullet holes and the money is missing.
Yeah, yes, accurate. Also, I mean, I think they were clowning on a couple things. One, the huge wreckage that will destroy all the bodies and, like, melt the cases of money that are just missing. Or two, it's really inaccessible area to get to the wreckage. Or C, it's so inaccessible, but by the time they get to the wreckage and realize it's been stolen, they are long gone. So, like, they had a couple outcomes sketched out. They didn't count on Gabe Walker or the true hero of this movie, the cable snapping. Or the other true hero of the movie, who I actually have a very soft spot for, is the one treasury agent who survives the bloodbath on the plane.
Yes.
And so basically, for the people who haven't seen the movie, he kills all the treasury agents. There's one turncoat treasury guy. He kills everybody else. He's in collusion with Eric Quaylen. He sets up the cable. He sends the money down. And he doesn't realize that one of the guys he shot is still alive. So that guy comes up all bloody with, like, an automatic weapon and just starts shooting the other plane, which is amazing. He shoots one of the pilots, I think, and he, like, shoots the money case, and he's just, like, shooting his gun, not really caring that there are, like, potentially people on the ground. Those bullets are going to hit something, but not important. Anyway, I love that guy. He's awesome. He takes a stand. Unfortunately, he does blow up.
Yeah, I was going to say, until you mentioned the part about the bullets hitting people on the ground, I was like, oh, fair point. Because I was going to say, I thought he was, like, the one good cop. We never have good cops in any of our movies. And he noticed the other plane when he was on the first plane. So he knew something was up. So he was alert. He's aware of his surroundings. He sensed the danger. The other guy, the turncoat guy, tried to calm him down, but then just realized it was too late and he had to start killing everyone. And then this guy was like, well, I'm dying. This plane's going down. The least I can do is make sure the bad guys don't get away with it. And I was like, I appreciate this. Why aren't you in all of the movies? Because every other movie we watch has got dumbass, awful fucking cops.
He is great. But the best part of that plane scene to me is that you don't know who the bad guy is at first. So the guy who ends up being the good cop, like the one good cop, I thought he was the bad guy the first time I saw it, because he's like, oh, I'm just hitching a ride to my next assignment. So I was like, oh, he's definitely in collusion. And then the good cop turns a gun on the real turncoat guy. So at that moment, you think, okay, good cop is bad. But then turncoat guy's associates overwhelm the good cop, and you're like, oh, they're all bad. And then the real bad guy shoots everybody, and everybody dies. And you're just like, wait, who's the bad guy?
Travers is his name, right? I feel like we should start using names.
Thank you. Travers is his name.
I love that you think I learned anyone's name.
He's the only one that I got.
Hal and Sarah.
I don't think I knew Gabe's name. I don't think I knew Gabe's name for the entire movie. I was like,
the good cop's name is Matheson, just FYI.
I would have no idea.
But it's actually because they call that got really confusing, and I wanted to mention that briefly. But Gabe's last name is Walker, and Hal's last name is Tucker.
Yes.
So they say Walker and Tucker a lot, and even I for a second was like, wait, which did they sound? What? Who?
I also wasn't sure if those were their real names, like if those were their last names, or if they were just giving fake names.
Yeah, I genuinely thought those were fake names until right this second. I thought they were just like, our names are Walker and Tucker, of course, and then the bad guys just call them that because that's all they know. But why would you give your real name to a terrorist with a semi-automatic weapon looking for hidden cash in the mountains?
Well, I mean, why wouldn't you? You don't have your ID on you. It's like, you're not going to find me later.
I'm not taking any risks. I'm like, my name is Jackie Clark. You can find me.
That's all right. I can take him on, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. You've got the training. You've seen enough of the movies.
Right? And apparently, anyone can climb mountains. I feel like there hasn't been enough discussion yet about the fact that Sylvester Stallone climbing a mountain is a ridiculous prospect. It is impossible. Like, you're not, like, you favor lean bulk when you're hoisting your own body weight up the side of a sheer cliff. Like, it is impossible for him to have any endurance with that physique. On top of that, they just never mention the prospect of being tired. Like, no, never does he even slip. Like, that's one of the exciting things about like a mountain climbing type movie is the like, oh, gasp, I'm slipping, but I catch myself with like the bare knuckles of my hand. But they never imply that he ever struggles. Like, this is very easy for him.
Yeah. And not just him, for everyone. Like, even the bad guys who are not professional mountain climbers, they're never like, I'm so tired from all of this hiking and climbing we've been doing, we need a break. Or no one's ever like, hey, I am dehydrated. It has been 2 days since I have had food or water. I might collapse soon. So, they're all just fine.
Is there any mention of the time frame? Because I know, like, you're right. Like, I don't think it's any more than a day, honestly. Is there a nighttime?
There's one nighttime. Oh, two?
Two?
I think there's 2 nights. I think Jessie and Gabe spend one night in the cabin and one night in that cave with the fire. Oh,
you're right. Or at least with
where
one
they
of
snuggle.
Those,
yeah. So I think I'm assuming this is over 3 days. But that presents its own set of problems.
I was going to say,
how come no one has noticed?
Worse. Sorry, I would have rather they just pretend it was like one day and they just hiked a lot. But no, it's 3 days and they're all not dying of hypothermia, not completely dehydrated.
The way they get around this, I think, is they imply very casually that the cabin that they both parties end up stopping at has food. Because when they go in it, when the bad guys go in it, they start throwing around power bars. So I feel like there's a cache of food there, even though it is absolutely unbelievable that that's all they need to survive intense physical exertion in the freezing cold.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they could drink the snow.
That also has issues because you can't just have cold snow. It'll just make you more hypothermic.
I'm just trying to give them
I'm just saying, like,
something.
They can make fire so they can melt the snow, like, sure. And a couple times there's runoff in streams. They do show that. So, okay.
It's like the temperature thing that bothers me more than the food and drink thing.
I know,
temperature varies so much. Because at first they're like, it's this horrible storm. It's a snowstorm. And then they're like, now there's no snow. And it's like spring. And it's fine. And then it's like, now you're in the freezing cold. And you will die without your jacket on. And I'm like, what? What is happening here?
I mean, I guess it depends on how the mountains are. Like, I can buy that it can feel like a spring day at the base of the mountain and then, like, middle of winter, like, terrible conditions higher up. Like, that doesn't bother me so much. But I'm like, they're wearing, like, windbreakers. Yeah. And then, like, Sylvester Stallone's got this weird-ass trucker hat on. Like, Hal doesn't have any hat on. None of them have hats. Like...
Yeah, so the point of the world of this movie is that also you need no gear. Like, if you when they zoom in on Sylvester Stallone, when they're first forcing Gabe to climb up to go to the first case, they're like, we're going to take his coat. He's only in a t-shirt. That way he has to come back. Sure. Okay. Great plan.
That way we see Sylvester Stallone's muscles because he was like, I have to look ripped in every scene. So I can't have a bulky jacket on. Let me just free solo this in my little tight tee.
I mean, I'm not complaining. I know you guys will not share this opinion. That's fine. But this era, Sylvester Stallone can get it. So
I wasn't mad at it. I wasn't mad at it.
Okay, right? Like, if you can ignore maybe like from the neck up, he's all right.
You know what? I gotta say, I haven't seen a ton of Sylvester Stallone movies, but I do find him charming. Like,
he always has a little bit of humor and a little bit of twinkle in his eye. He's hot. Like, I'm gonna say it. I'm very, like, obviously into the world of this movie. I accept what they tell me, and they're telling me he's hot, and I'm like, all right, I'm into it.
But then he does most of the movie in a fucking t-shirt or sweater. Like,
so funny. So he goes up in this t-shirt, but when he's going up, they also show his shoes, which are basically combat boots, and his pants, which are basically jeans or khakis. Like, they're not the type of pants you can wear that will allow movement in any way, right? Like, it's inconceivable. The whole point of climbing, as I understand it, especially free solo climbing, is jamming like your toes covered in basically like sock type shoes into cracks. Like you cannot climb without being able to feel the rock with your feet.
But then I guess their logic is he wasn't planning on climbing today. He was just...
But he was, because like Jessie told him you have to go climb to see if these hikers back. Like, you're telling me he doesn't have gear anywhere? He doesn't have an outfit he could change into? He doesn't have the appropriate
traumatized,
footwear?
Jen. He probably burnt all of it.
There's no extras at the like park?
I'm just telling you what the movie is using as defense.
I know.
He did not come equipped or prepared to climb that day. Also, are we supposed to assume that he hasn't climbed in 8 months and this is his...
No, I was going to mention that. He said he was working search and rescue in Denver.
Oh, that's
so
true.
He's
he did
been working.
Okay. Yeah.
And I also wanted to mention, I feel like they set up the whole Jessie Gabe talk because he was picking up his stuff at their old house. So that's where in my head, I'm like, he got his supplies, his old supplies, whatever he left at Jessie's house. And that's why he has... the belt, all the carabiners, everything, the ropes, is because he had left it behind.
But like clothes.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have had that stuff because
if you look at Hal as well, who was on duty and is equipped, he's wearing basically the same stuff.
It's true.
I think it's
I don't know why I'm trying to find logic. Like there's no logic in this.
I also reach a lot. I know I do, but I'm like, you guys, there were power bars in the cabin, so everything's fine.
No, but it's funny. I didn't notice until you pointed it out, Jackie, about how they're dressed. And I'm like, you're right. Like, they're dressed like park rangers, which is fine, but that's not their job. They're search and rescue mountain climbers. They should have different attire than, like, khakis and a polo.
Maybe
like, that's
like
a uniform at Best Buy. Like, that's... Yeah.
The thing that makes me the maddest is when they aren't wearing gloves, which is a majority of this movie, and when they aren't wearing hats. Yep. So, like, okay, sure, you can't wear hats because you have to have your movie star good looks on camera, everyone. But there's multiple scenes of all of them climbing up ice and snow-covered rocks in their bare hands.
Yep.
And I'm just like, you have maybe 5 minutes of doing that before you cannot move your hand anymore. It's a claw.
Yeah.
And then I think that was the most outrageous thing to me. I was like, fine, maybe he can wear a t-shirt for a while, whatever, but your hands will fall off.
For me, the most outrageous part was after the t-shirt scene. They're like, he's going to die of hypothermia because it's so cold. But he makes it to that cabin and Jessie's already there. And she, like, finds a sweater and throws it at him. And he just immediately warms up, like, before even putting it on. He, like, at first he's like, I'm dying of the cold. She's like, I found a sweater. And he's like, okay, so we have to go back out there. And he's, like, putting it on. He's, like, ready to go. And I'm like, you're still, like, really cold. You don't warm up instantly. It's also bad to warm up instantly. Like, this is not how you're supposed to handle the situation, sir.
I hear what you're saying. I am surprised you chose that moment and not the moment where he is fully submerged in the ice-cold river under ice, and then he emerges, sits on the bank, doesn't even shiver, doesn't even move. He's just like, must go get Jessie. Like, he doesn't even blink. They don't change clothes. He's just... Let's just ignore that fact. Let's just, like, not think about it.
That's a good point. I wasn't even at that part of the movie yet in my mind. I was still at this first, like, half hour.
Yeah. When you say the word, what outraged you about this movie, I just skip around. I'm like, this, and then this, and then the other thing.
Oh, yeah.
We'll get there. We haven't even really hit on...
anything. We're
any
just,
of the movie.
Here's everything that doesn't make sense.
Nothing about this movie makes sense.
It doesn't really. Like... The main goal is find the cases. And then there's just scenes of tromping through the snow. And it's never very clear about where they're going, what direction, what their time frame is, what their plan is. It's just like, you're not supposed to think too hard about it. It's a Jackie pick, right?
So let's talk about the villain's ends.
I do think we got through, like, how absurd it is.
What really bothered me, I kind of mentioned it in passing, but, like, I don't understand why Eric Quaylen and all of his lackeys are so antagonistic towards Hal and Gabe. Like, they trick them into coming to rescue them, fine, and then they kidnap them, fine, and then they're just immediately like, and now we're gonna kill you, and we're gonna kill you, and we're gonna kill you. And I don't, like, okay, well, the way this movie is setting it up is that they're your only chance of finding the cases. Like, why are you so quick to pull the trigger on all of these people?
Okay, so to me, I feel like the actual guides themselves are almost secondary, and the main point of calling search and rescue is to get a helicopter or to get transport. So they're not the depending on the guides too much. They're just like a means to an end and maybe making finding the cases more convenient. But you're right.
Saying they thought that the helicopter was going to come and they were like, we can't send the helicopter up in this weather.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But you're right. Like the whole vibe with the bad guys between Hal and Gabe and within themselves is just like way over the top aggression.
Yeah.
It's like he put a team together who didn't know each other. No one had worked with each other. They all had different styles and goals and thoughts. And like, it's awful. I know that it's like, oh, we're all so stressed out and high stakes or whatever, but you're right. All they ever do is bitch at each other and like threaten each other. And it's annoying. It's kind of annoying to watch. It's like, I don't want to see you guys have little hissies. Like, you're the bad guys. Just like, shut up and shoot.
It was a similar vibe for me as John Travolta in Broken Arrow, where it just felt like they were trying to make him as evil as they could. And so he just had all these like not quippy one-liners and like evil stares and just like, I don't know, they were trying for one thing and it didn't read. I got a similar feeling watching like John Lithgow and his horde.
Yeah, and I feel like with all of the different lackeys, because all they ever said or did was just like, I'm gonna kill you, I'm gonna kill you, I hate you. You didn't really get a sense of any of their like personalities or even what they brought to the team. Because, you know, usually when there's a team of bad guys, there's maybe like one guy who's like the muscle, who's like security for John Lithgow, that kind of thing. Like there's the woman who's the pilot, obviously. And then maybe there would be like someone else who's like, oh, I'm the guy who gets this stuff together. I'm the tech guy. Like they didn't really have any like roles. So they're kind of just like, we're all here and we're all angry. So then I'm like, okay, so why are you threatening to kill each other? Because John Lithgow's definitely going to kill all of you and take all the money because you're offering nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they tried to almost give Travers a little bit more character development, but basically he just slowly goes insane. Like he just becomes more and more erratic, which isn't really a personality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
but
yeah,
like, I could almost buy that from Travers because he's the guy who was like the double agent. So I could sort of see him being like, I thought I was going to get away with this and now it's unraveling and I'm going to have so much worse consequences than anyone else. So I could see how that would lead him down that road, but you never really have that kind of come from him. Instead, he's just like, I'm going to screw you over. You can't screw me over. I'm the guy you need. And then it's just that back and forth for like 2 hours and it's kind of dull.
It's very interesting. Yeah, you're really right. Because it's almost like they all have the exact same personality. And because of that, it's hard to kind of tell them apart. There's a bunch of guys with guns and they all threaten each other all the time. So it's like, who's what? Like one guy has a shotgun. That's your only defining characteristic? I mean...
And then towards the end, the one guy's fighting Hal and he's like, I'm British. I'm making soccer references. And I'm like, what? Where did this come from? Like, has this been his thing the whole time? Has he just been waiting? Has he been like... This actor, like, came up with a backstory for his character and it never made it to the movie. So then he decides to monologue and be like, I'm a failed soccer player, so now all I can do is kill, but I will kick you a lot, too, to live out my soccer dreams as a villain.
You actually made a really interesting point, too, is that none of the bad guys, for all of their bad guyness, will just kill. They, like, do the drawn-out fight every time they have the opportunity. They're like, I will make a monologue and speak and punch and kick for a couple minutes until, surprise, the good guy gets the upper hand and wins. But none of them are like actually good bad guys. They're all terrible at their bad guy job.
Yeah, they're not compelling for me either. Like
they were doomed to fail.
They were just fodder. They're fodder for the body count, which
Definitely.
we'll get into later.
Yeah, which, like, I mean, obviously that's understandable in a Jackie-type movie, but if we're supposed to believe that John Lithgow is, like, this incredible mastermind evil villain, like, this is his crack team.
Yeah.
Right, like, wouldn't he have associates that he pulls job with on the regular? Not just, like, found this guy at 7-Eleven, he has a shotgun, he's coming with me. Now, let's talk about John Lithgow. Who loved John Lithgow? Who hated John Lithgow? I want to know. What did you think of John Lithgow?
Can we talk about his, like, voice and accent choices?
I had a moment in this movie. I can't remember the last time I watched a John Lithgow movie where he didn't have an accent, and I had this like a moment of crisis of like, is he British? What is happening? Like
I was watching The Crown literally yesterday, and I was like, is he British? Did I just forget? But no, he's not British, right? Oh, he's not Winston
he's
Churchill.
American.
Yeah, no, I just had this like moment of crisis.
Yeah, that was what John Lithgow will do to you, friends. He makes you question your entire reality. It's his gift as an actor.
Also, like, I don't know how familiar you guys are with John Lithgow, like, in general. But, like, obviously I'd seen, Third Rock from the Sun when I was a youth. And that was kind of it, probably. And then in Dexter, when he's the Trinity Killer, and it's, like, the best season ever. So fucking good. And now watching this, I was like, oh, he's played a villain before? I thought it was so subversive in Dexter, where he was, like, the villain.
Different reference points for John
What's yours?
Flashdance?
Austin, what's
Not
yours?
Flashdance. You guys know what I'm talking about.
Footloose!
Oh, Footloose!
Yeah, me too. Footloose is my John Lithgow, so I'm always like, he's a sweet, kind of sad, confused old man. And I was like, oh wait, now he has a gun?
Yeah.
But I don't like him in this movie. And I like John Lithgow. And to find something to not like about this movie, I choose the John Lithgow of it all because he's over the top dumb. Like he purposely has his eyes at half mast all the time, which is infuriating, especially if you're in a fight for your life. Like you open your eyes up, surprise, you want to see what's around you. His dumb accent, his like very ruthless actions, which end up just being really, I just don't buy it. Like I just don't buy him.
Yeah, but I feel like it's also just the writing in general is very thin on these villains, as we've established, that it's sort of just like, you're all bad guys, you just say bad guy stuff, and then walk around and wait for the good guys to foil you, like...
Yeah.
I wish they hadn't set him up as some brilliant, internationally sought mastermind, because that is hard to believe.
Yeah, especially if you can't back it up with, like, what the villains are doing, you know what I mean? Like, you can't be like, he's no Hans Gruber, you know what I mean? Like, you understand that villain, you know that he's one step ahead. This guy, they could have just been like, I don't know, I think some guy stole from the plane, like, I don't know who this person is. Maybe he's some criminal trying to make a name for himself.
Honestly, can we just skip right to the end, because I have to say one thing about John Lithgow. He has the worst villain death scene in any movie. It's the stupidest. Like the scene, like the actual filmography of it all is terrible. Is filmography the word I'm looking for? Cinematography, maybe? Yeah. But he's literally like in a helicopter that's falling off a cliff and he's like, ah! And then they show the ground and then he's like, ah! But he's like slightly moved to a different angle. And it's just like, oh, that's bad. They do it so poorly.
That whole scene? What?
We can talk about it.
Let's go to the end, guys. I mean, there's not much we're missing. We're not skipping over a lot, but at the end...
This whole movie is basically just they walk around, look for cases, and kill each other.
Yeah.
So the end.
There's some collateral damage, like other skiers are shot by accident or on purpose, and like, everybody fights and everyone dies. We'll talk about some notable deaths, but I want to get right to the end, because we're supposed to believe that, of course, Jessie, the single female character, has to get captured by the bad guys.
Yeah, because, I mean, what else is she there for? She gets captured, and now...
we'll get... I want to talk about Jessie, but we'll just go through this part first.
Sure.
Jessie gets taken hostage because she thinks it's old guy Frank in the helicopter, but it's actually Eric Quaylen with a gun. And I'm like, hey, guess what? He can't fly a helicopter and hold a gun on you at the same time. Like, run away.
How did she get in there?
Yeah, I don't know. He like lands a helicopter while pointing a gun at her and then makes her get into that. Like, it's bogus. She has no reason to be in this situation. Boo, the writing on that.
I didn't even think of that. That is a giant...
I know,
it's a really good point, because I'm a moron and I forgot this is a search and rescue helicopter, not a military helicopter, so there's no guns on it.
No. And they make a point of him going like big arm gesture with his pistol out the through the window he's pointing it, so it's
guns
not even
are
gonna
magical
go straight.
In this movie.
They really are. Anyway, so Jessie's a hostage. He arranges with Gabe to do an exchange for some of the money that's left, because Gabe's been sabotaging the cases and getting rid of the money. And so Eric Quaylen suggests a meeting spot that conveniently is by the only metal structure in the mountains. We're talking about, like, again, hundreds of miles of mountains, but they land on a mountain where there's a convenient iron ladder set up so that Gabe can attach a cable. We're talking about cables again, you guys. He attaches a cable from the helicopter to the iron ladder, and that way the helicopter can't fly away. And then Gabe ends up on the ladder. I forget why. And then the ladder is being pulled off the mountainside by the helicopter. But not quite enough. It's so attached to the mountain that it crashes the helicopter down. It like, the ladder stretches to its extent and then it pendulums the helicopter and the helicopter crashes into the mountainside. And then Eric and Gabe have a mano-a-mano poncho fight, which is also very unbelievable.
The helicopter that is clinging precariously to the mountainside.
Yes.
Which is held up by an iron ladder that's stapled into the side of the mountain.
Because they're both like, I care about punching you more than I care about getting myself to safety.
Yeah.
Yes. And we're supposed to believe that Sylvester Stallone and John Lithgow are equally matched in terms of punchy punch, which is just hilarious.
Yeah, because it should have been one punch from Stallone and John Lithgow is unconscious.
He literally flies off in an arc, just like,
the only thing Lithgow has going for him right now is that Stallone's arms should be falling off.
True.
Excellent point.
True. He can't feel his arms anymore, so he's just kind of like, ugh.
Just flinging them around, me after arm day.
Classic. Okay, so that actually does even it. John Lithgow has gloves. Boom. The odds. That's what makes it even. But still, they're like punchy punch. They go inside the helicopter. They go outside the helicopter. This helicopter, how much does a helicopter weigh? Anybody? Like 10,000 pounds?
I think it's like 4 pounds because that's why it was able to just stay on the side of the cliff for so long.
Right.
Like just, it wasn't on a ledge. It was just hanging.
It was hanging from a ladder that couldn't have been more than like stapled in with, maybe they had like rock bolts, which are maybe 3 inches long, but like it's not.
When was that ladder installed? Because probably decades ago. Not in the best shape.
You know, it's clearly rusted and old. And why is this ladder here? It goes up to the top of a mountain. Like, not even.
Where does it start from?
Yeah, no, there's no point.
It starts halfway up.
Where does it start and where does it end and why? Like, who made this ladder to nowhere for no reason? It's not going to a structure.
Stallone's pet project for years on the search and rescue team. He's like, guys, if we just have a ladder, people can climb down. This is a smart idea. It'll come in handy one day. And they're all like, oh, you.
He's like, I'll show you. And on the weekends, he just goes, knocks this ladder in place. And they're like, oh, Stallone.
And then after this worked, he's like, see, guys, I told you this ladder would come in handy.
So sturdy.
Aren't you glad I built this ladder? And then Jessie's like, I don't want to see you anymore.
She shouldn't, man. She's way too good for him. But, like, I'm exhausted. I don't really have anything else to say. It's just unbelievable that for some reason, there is this metal structure to attach the helicopter to. And then it's a ladder so Sylvester Stallone can be hanging off the ladder in midair. And then the ladder is attached strongly enough to bring down a helicopter and then support its weight. Like, the whole end scene.
It's pretty bad.
Jackie, I think you have more experience with mountains than the rest of us. Are there not often metal ladders just hanging off the side? Because I just assumed that was a mountain thing. That's how you get down after you've climbed to the top, maybe?
Actually, very interesting fact. So, mountain goats actually construct ladders. They don't actually climb. They make ladders in the wild.
That's
smart. People don't really know that. They think that they just like hop, but no, they actually with their horns and digging, they create iron ladders and bolt them into the walls.
Wow.
That was really smart. That's good to know.
Evolution, man.
Yeah.
Honestly, they're smarter than you would think. They really are. Love mountain goats. Honestly, though, I did see one get hit by a car. Not very smart. Anywho.
Way to bring the mood down.
You know what'll bring it back up? Let's talk about Jessie.
Yeah.
I like Jessie. I feel like she's a likable character, yes?
Yeah, no, I liked her a lot. Because I was going to say, back at the beginning, when her and Gabe are talking, and she kind of gives him shit for being gone for so long without talking to her or anyone, and he kind of does the, like, poor me, it's my fault, blah, 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 and she kind of doesn't let him get away with it. She's like, no, fuck you, we were all up there, like, it was hard for all of us, it clearly wasn't your fault, you did everything you could, what was Hal thinking, what was Hal thinking even having her up there, she couldn't climb, this is nothing, like, this is not your fault, so, and she kind of, like, puts the kibosh on his little pity party. I think I wrote down what she said, but she said something about, like, quit hoarding all the guilt, and I was like, fuck yeah, don't let him get away with that.
Right, Jessie's established right from the beginning as being a badass because she is like the helicopter pilot. She's the one who's really skilled in this group of 4. She's the important one.
Although she apparently doesn't have emergency medical training, so she should probably get on that.
Yeah, my issue isn't with Jessie, who I think is a perfectly fine character. My issue is that in a 90s action movie, the lone girl character never has anything to do. So most of the movie, she's following Sylvester Stallone around. When he gets into a fight with a guy, one time she tries to shoot him and the gun was out of bullets, so then she just sits back and lets the fight continue to happen without doing anything else to help. And then she gets kidnapped. And then I'm like, okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for giving us this amazing representation of women in film. We love it.
It's funny you said like she doesn't have much to do, because just before the scene where she's on the mountain and then John Lithgow comes up and somehow she gets kidnapped, just before that, I had written the note, like, what happened to Jessie? I'd lost track of her because there was a bunch of stuff going on. I think it was right after this scene where the bridge blows up and they, like, manage to get off of it. And I was like, I've lost track of her since the bridge. Like, what happened to her? And so I still don't know what happened to her, but all of a sudden, then the next shot was her on the mountain. And then she got kidnapped. So, yeah, like, literally, I didn't know where she was in this movie.
Stallone had told her to go back to, like, radio for help and tell people what was going on, which is absolutely correct. Someone should have done this at some point. So I'm like, that's good. So I kind of thought maybe in a better version of the movie, you're still getting her out of the action because they can't have a woman fight because Stallone has to do all the fighting.
Right.
So
at least he didn't knock her out this time.
True.
Bringing it back.
But like, she could have actually gone back and got help, connected with the FBI people in their helicopter, coordinated everyone, got a second helicopter, flew in. Like, she could have done something to help save the day instead of just getting kidnapped by an old man driving a helicopter trying to land it while pointing a gun at her.
Yeah, let's just give it of the times kind of moment, because this is what women did in action movies at this time, right? And they tried to give her more depth in that she is a little bit stronger than your average lame-ass woman in an action movie, where she flies a helicopter. She insists on being dropped off in the wilderness to go find the guys after they don't check in. She does try and shoot a guy. She has a couple smart moments where she figures out plans. Like, she doesn't get much, but what they do with what she has is better than average.
Yeah, I actually didn't mind so much. Yeah, I mean, like you say, it's the type of movie that it is. Obviously, she's not going to be the hero of it, but I did, and maybe just on the like personal side of things more than on the action side of things. Like I said before, I liked her as a person. I liked that she was pretty strong in her convictions from what we saw.
She never babies him. Like, literally, when he's cold, she like whips the sweater at him. She's like, can we figure out the next step? Like, she's not like, what do I do? She's like, put the sweater on so we can get you warm and move out.
Yeah.
She's not waiting to be told, which is something at least. But yeah, I mean, she loses all credibility the second she gets kidnapped.
Yeah, and I know you said it's like of the time, and it's just a repeated issue in all of these 90s action movies where I'm like, I'm waiting for the one, other than Speed, where Sandy B like holds down the fort. But like, I'm waiting for the one where I don't have to have this complaint.
If I ever tried to pick movies that I thought you would like, I would aim for that, but instead I'm just going to pick movies I like.
That's totally fair.
Because I definitely, as a kid, I don't even know if it's a healthy thing, but I always pictured myself as the hero. So I always ignored the girl characters. I'm like, you're not really that important, because I wasn't aware of gender as much, I guess, as a kid. I was like, this is cool. I want to climb mountains and shoot people. Like, that's where I put myself into. I never put myself into the woman sidekick character. So it just didn't hit me that way. But you're right. Like, she's done a disservice. And I really didn't like that because also when she's holding the gun on the guy, she's like, her hand is shaking. So when she's like, I don't know what I'm doing with this weapon. It's like, you didn't have like a rifle when you were patrolling the mountains. Like, I know you know what a gun is. Please calm down.
Right. Yeah, because Frank has one whenever he rescues the base jumper. Who's like hanging from the tree, and then there's like wolves around him, and so he shoots a warning shot to scare the wolves away so he can rescue. So like, if he had one, I would assume she probably would, if she's also a helicopter pilot.
We just have to deal with the fact that we needed to set it up so that Gabe could save her.
Yeah, of course. I think the first scene with her just kind of made me like her, so I was on her side.
I think it's time to talk about some of the things we really liked about this movie, like human toboggan.
Yes. Okay. Yes. So that was a scene.
I love Human Toboggan.
Walk us through it, Jen or Jackie.
I mean, basically, it's just two men are fighting hand-to-hand combat, and they're tumbling down a cliff, and Sylvester Stallone ends up riding this man as a human toboggan. And they're punching each other as they're literally going tens of miles an hour down this very steep, icy slope. At one point, Sylvester Stallone pushes the bad guy's face into the ice, and it gets like shredded, which is, first of all, hilarious because that would flip you over. I mean, that if you touch the ice, you flip over when you're going that fast and that steep. Like, again, physics don't apply. And he cheese graters his face. And then they go flying off the edge of a cliff, and Sylvester Stallone does a movement where he takes out his ice axe, flips around, stabs the ice, halts his progress immediately. There's no slowing down. It's like he's jerked to a stop. And it's just, that part breaks my physics brain because his arm would be pulled out of its socket. If he didn't have a strap around, there's no way he could maintain his grip on that ice axe. He would have flown off. Like, you can't just stop movement like that. It doesn't work. The force has to go somewhere, okay? And it would go in his body and rip all his tendons apart. Like, it's just so stupid. But I also love it because it's so ridiculous that he's riding this man like a piece of furniture.
Yeah, it was like... It was insane because, yeah, they're fighting and then they start falling down the cliff and then it just turns into a toboggan, a human toboggan, as we've said many times. But, like, that is the most ridiculous thing, like, to put in a movie. You're like, okay, they're fighting, they fall down the cliff, and then he rides the other guy like a toboggan down the cliff while they continue to fight. What? Who? How? Movie.
Is it... I mean, I don't want to steer away from the human toboggan too soon if we have more to say about it, but is it more ridiculous than the scene later in the cave where Sylvester Stallone lifts the bad guy over his head and then throws him up into an icicle and impales him on the icicle?
I don't think it was an icicle. I think it was like the stalactite or whatever.
That makes more sense.
Stalactite hangs down, stalagmite goes up.
Either way, it looked like a fucking icicle. I'm not convinced it wasn't, given this movie's track record.
I mean, I liked it to be a stalactite because then it is rock and is sturdy enough to pierce through a man entirely, in theory. But the force generated, it's not even like...
This part was more the lifting.
He deadlifted him so strongly.
And also, after having the shit kicked out of him for 5 minutes, like, Stallone was taking a beating in that fight scene, and then he's like, actually, this whole time, I've been able to pick you up and throw you into the ceiling and kill you. I just waited until now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was just biding my time. I just thought I would give you a chance to get a few punches in.
And then, of course, Stallone is absolutely fine after this. He had the shit kicked out of him in this fight. But there's no injuries, he's not limping, he's not sore, he doesn't need to rest. He's like, now let's go fight some more.
Another weird thing in this movie that he constantly gets hurt, but the evidence disappears. Like, he always has like a cut, and then the next scene it's gone. Which, I mean, this is a Hollywood movie. How are you getting away with such... What's the word for that when it doesn't match?
Like
continuity? Yeah.
I think it's because Stallone was like, no, my face has to look perfect because I'm amazing.
I guess, which is so dumb. But like, anyway, I'm sorry, but I love the stalactite impalement scene because it is very vicious. It is a visceral stabation. But it is very dumb. Like, if it was a stalagmite,
that would make more sense.
If you threw him down and gravity was helping you, I'm sure we'd all be way more on board with this. Yeah. But it was up.
Also, like, remind me, after he throws him up, is the dead body stuck on the stalactite, or does it fall back down?
It falls immediately.
Okay. That's less fun. It would be more fun if it was stuck up there.
Speaking of caves, do we want to talk about the bats?
Those poor bats. I felt so bad.
I know. I feel bad for the bats, and I also felt bad for Jessie. They do her dirty again. She's afraid of bats. She's a badass park ranger. She's seen bats before. Like, why is she all of a sudden a trembling girl?
Yeah.
She should be able to face a bat.
This is her park. And, like, I get it. I do not want a bat in my hair. That is a weird fear. If I see a bat, I think it's going to get caught in my hair somehow. I don't know why, but that freaks me out. So I'm like, I get that. I love bats. I think they're cute, but I understand the fear of I don't want it in my hair. But they're in a cave, and the bats are all sleeping because it's daytime, and she's smart enough to know that because this is her park where she works. She should understand the wildlife that is there, or at least know of its existence. But instead, she just starts screaming and freaking out, like Jackie said, like a girl, because she has to, because she's a girl character, and that's why she's here. And then all the bats start freaking out because they're like, what's going on? And then I'm like, those poor bats.
I know, they're in their home. They're just trying to nap.
Like, what have you done? And then all the bats leave, and then they go outside, and it's daylight, and they're like, I'm so confused.
My daily routine has been disturbed.
Yeah. I mean, imagine someone comes into your house when you're trying to sleep and just starts screaming at you. You would also run and be confused and be very upset.
Also, I think bats are really cute as well. Yeah. And I wouldn't mind one in my hair. I'd be like, oh, that's funny, stupid bat.
Oh, I don't know. For some reason, like, I don't have an issue with bats, like, in general, but, like, I just think of them getting caught in my hair, and that freaks me out. I must have seen a movie or something as a child where this happened, because it's a very specific fear.
I feel like it's a rational one, though.
In the world of ridiculousness, can we talk about the 90s stoner base jumper side characters?
Yeah, my note about them was like, who are these clowns?
We first meet them. They pull their car up alongside Sylvester Stallone's car to shout a conversation back and forth while driving the same way together in a 2-lane street. So one of them is in the oncoming traffic. I assume the stoners.
Yeah.
And
it's actually Gabe.
Is it?
Yeah, they push him over, basically.
So that they can scream a conversation and be like, do you want to come jumping with us? And I'm like, can you even hear each other shouting from moving vehicles like this?
No. Also, they see him drive by, they're at a gas station, they don't pay for their gas. They just take off. I'm like, dudes, that's so irresponsible.
Maybe they prepaid.
I will say, at a certain point, once the bad guys and, like, Gabe and Hal were all out there, I was like, I know those stoner guys are going to come back, and it's going to be amazing. So I was ready for it, and I thought it was going to be hilarious. But then it was kind of just sad.
Yeah, which brings me to a bone I have to pick with Jackie. And
random civilians getting killed?
Yeah. Jackie hates...
You know it's not my favorite thing.
I know. You hate random innocent bystander deaths. And this movie is chock full of them.
Only really the stoner guys.
And Frank.
Frank he knew what he was signing up for in the dangerous world of search and rescue.
No, he did not.
No, I really feel sad when Frank dies too, because they totally set him up as like the fatherly figure, the like 2 days away from retirement figure, the innocent, helpful figure. Totally. I don't know why they do that to poor Frank, but they basically have him die so that Hal can get a weapon, which is Frank's knife.
Yeah.
Right? So like they had to find a way to introduce more weaponry, apparently, to the good guys. But to get back to the stoners, like, are we supposed to not like them because they're stoners? Is that like the 90s feel? Like you're supposed to be like, whatever, they're just a bunch of stoners, who cares?
No, I thought it was going to be sort of more like, again, I don't know. I thought they were going to be kind of like the wacky comic relief of the movie, kind of. Like these ridiculous young people, because this is how I guess all young people were in the 90s. We were all stoners and base jumpers.
Checks out.
So I really thought there was going to be some sort of hilarious way that they accidentally like stumble on things and end up like helping take one guy out or something, you know? I thought it was going to be like good, wholesome fun. And then instead they run into them and then they're like, oh, Hal, like you have to not let them know that we're bad guys or whatever. So then Hal's like, oh, base jumpers, like leave, they're going to kill you. And then the bad guys just kill them. So I'm like, what was the point? Why don't you just kill them?
But also, like, why? Like, they didn't... this is why I don't like these bad guys. They're just leaving bodies around for no reason.
For no
They're
reason.
killing people for no reason. Because Hal had the cover story. They're like, oh, you're with some hikers today? And he's like, yeah. Like, okay, fine, there's your cover story. Like, and then the bad guys...
Just shoot them for no reason.
Yeah, and it's like, what the fuck is your problem?
If you were like, okay, we just have to shoot them for no reason, why even let them have this conversation? Like... Why didn't you just shoot them right away? Instead, you let them have a conversation where they're like, oh, can you come base jumping with us? Or are you stuck with these hikers? And he's like, yeah. They could have even been like a scene, maybe they had said like, oh, I'm with these hikers. And then the base jumpers kind of look at those guys and be like, this is a weird hiking group.
Yeah.
That one is dressed like an FBI agent in like a suit and dress shoes. This one's carrying a shotgun.
Yeah, they're all bleeding.
Now, what is happening? If there was some sort of that where they realize something's up and then they have to try to kill them.
Yeah, that would have been more acceptable.
Well, that was kind of what I was thinking, is that they were going to let them live if it was like a ships passing in the night situation. They didn't really pay attention. But then they started talking. It's like, well, now they've noticed us. They see our faces. We can't just let them go. And I also think that they have this idea. I don't know why I'm totally projecting this, but they're like, if we kill these people out in this park, no one's really going to find them. It's the winter. Like, we have time. They can be killed and we'll have a month or two lead time to get away before anything gets discovered.
Yeah, and there's only 4 employees at the park search and rescue.
Yeah,
they've already killed all of them in their version of events, so
no one is searching and no one is rescuing.
Yeah.
So
it is
right,
fine.
like
it just
and
bothered
these guys
me.
are base jumpers, so it's an inherently dangerous lifestyle. No one would be that surprised if they didn't show up again, and we were like, oh, we better go find them. Does anyone know their last known location? Like, I don't think there's much risk killing these guys, but I didn't like it either. I remember being really sad the first time I saw it when I was younger. And I was like, they're just a couple of harmless kids. Even then, I was like, that's uncool. And one of them is just shot outright.
Yeah.
By the way, the other one survives.
Yeah.
They mentioned that, so.
Although, like, the other one, he kind of base jumps away and he gets caught in a tree. And then Frank ends up finding him when there's, like, wolves coming. And at that point, I was like, now there's wolves? Like, what is this movie introducing now at this point? Like, now they have to fight off wolves.
If they follow just the base jumper for the rest of the movie and watch his fight for survival against wolves, I'd be into that.
Yeah.
But the scariest part of the movie happens with that base jumper to me. The absolute scariest part of this movie is where he's being chased by the men with guns through the woods. Also, he's wearing complete neon, so there's no hiding.
Yeah.
Like, he is visible. And he literally clips his parachute on as he's jumping off the cliff. And I was like, I can't handle that kind of pressure. Imagine having to do a mechanical task, fitting a clasp into it as you're falling and being shot at, or else if you fail at clipping, you just die. Like, you just fall and die. I couldn't. It's like, here. It's like you know what it is? It's Point Break, where he's like, jump out after that parachute guy. Like, it's fine. Like, just trust that everything will work out as you jump from an incredible height with no guarantee of success.
At least he had a parachute.
Yeah. I feel like with base jumper guy too, in that moment, it might be more like your body just takes over. You're not even thinking, you're just doing, because you're just like, my friend just got shot in front of me. This guy's trying to shoot me. I don't understand what's happening, but I need to get away.
Right, like purely instinctual level, primal level, like no higher thought, no consequence thought, no fear thought.
Yeah, probably not until he's like halfway down, and then he's like, what just happened?
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. Again, though,
I'm glad he survived.
Yeah, me too. It was another one of those moments where I didn't like that they were shot at, because it just felt like they were making the bad guys evil for the sake of being evil. Like, oh, here's a shitty thing they can do. Mwahaha.
There was a lull, right? They needed to kill someone.
Don't like it.
Yeah.
Action movies, baby.
Didn't really serve much purpose other than we need another action scene, so let's shoot at some other characters. Right,
and they needed to incorporate, like, the cliffhanging aspect, the height, the adrenaline danger. Like, a lot of it is just walking. So they need some... This is why they try and cross a bridge and it blows up. And like, they always try to create these high stakes situations, regardless of if it's moving the plot, right? It's just, we need something to blow up. We need someone's heart rate to increase. This is what we're going to do. What else? Is there anything else you guys want to talk about? I mean, there's so many ridiculous things. Like, we could talk about the fact that he... Literally at one point, I can't even remember. I'm sorry. There's one scene where he jumps. I'm assuming something's exploding, or he's jumping to another cliff or something, but he just leaps off the edge into space. And it's so far, and he's so spread eagle, there's no chance that he's landing anywhere. And then he's just like, ugh, on his feet. And I'm like, no.
I read that when in the original cut of the movie, that jump was even further. It was like 40 feet or something.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And the test audiences laughed. And so they're like, oh, I guess we gotta change that up a little. So that was them making it more realistic.
I was going to say, like, they actually made things less ridiculous for this movie. So what we're left with is what they think is reasonable.
Yeah, it's the director's cut right there.
They were like, oh, the 40-foot jump is too far, but, fighting on the helicopter on the side of the cliff,
no
normal.
problem. Yeah.
We've all seen Skyscraper, yes?
No.
Which one's that?
The Rock movie?
The Rock? Yes, I have. It's amazing.
Okay. Because he does a jump that is the most ridiculous jump in all of action movies.
Yes, yeah. I'm with you.
And I'm like, Cliffhanger walked so Skyscraper could run.
I saw it in a theater. I had a great time.
Oh, I actually only saw it recently, and I was like, whoa, this is a lot even for me.
It is insane. But see, I don't mind that from time to time. I don't mind a Jackie movie every once in a while where it's like, this is an action movie, but it's absolutely insane. There's no sense of realism. Just let go. Let go and let The Rock show you the way.
Bringing it back to this movie, though, is I feel like that is fine, and I feel like I was on board with Hard Target being just absolutely insane, but I felt like with this movie that there was stuff to latch onto, and they had those really good moments, and then it was just ridiculous and insane, and it was, I don't know, at least for me, I don't enjoy that amount of suspension of disbelief, I guess, which is why I like Die Hard, where it's still stretching the realm of possibility, sure, but it's a little bit more rooted in reality. The Rock, a little more rooted in reality. Obviously it's extreme, but I can stretch my imagination that far. But then to go from the first scene of Cliffhanger to the human toboggan, or
they're
deadlifting the body above his head, I'm what the fuck just happened?
Yeah, I agree. It's they kind of needed to go one way or the other, kind of do a really suspenseful, realistic, the dangers that can happen to regular people on cliffs, or go balls to the wall, insane, the movie you're probably trying to make with Stallone. But then, when people are laughing when you do the 40-foot jump, embrace that. Make it an 80-foot jump, Lean in.
Yeah, they didn't go far enough one way or the other to make it perfect. It could have been... I like it because it's cheesy.
Yeah.
But I wasn't approaching it like maybe Austin was when you see the first scene and you expect it to be a drama, right? I knew what this movie was from the start.
I mean, I didn't knowing what it is. It's not like I was expecting it to be a drama. I just feel like there were elements there that could have been interesting. Let's dive into his psyche a little bit. Clearly, he's a little trauma. And they never really address it anymore after. They him and Jess talk about it. Him and Hal never talk about it. They have a little confrontation.
They have a very dangerous confrontation.
Yes.
He literally hangs him off the edge of a cliff and is like, I should kill you for not saving my girlfriend. And then they're just kind of bro hug. And they're like, I guess I love you again.
Yeah.
Let's not talk about it.
So there's
okay.
Yeah, there's no real growth at any point in the movie or anything.
I really thought there was going to be a scenario towards the end where Gabe was going to be like, we have to do this. And then Hal is like, no, we have to do this. And it was kind of going to echo that.
Yes.
And then they were going to come together and compromise, or Gabe was going to do it Hal's way or something to show, I can listen to you. There was going to be some sort of full circle moment of bonding where they're like, I've been mad at you for 8 months over something that wasn't your fault, or I've been blaming myself this whole time and been afraid to talk to you because I felt like it was my fault. Obviously they're not saying these words out loud because they're men in action movies, but just some sort of coming together of let's collaborate, we're friends again, bro hug, high five, shoot a bad guy, I
mean, that does happen in their joint struggle against the terrorists, right? They've realized they're on the same side, all unsaid, and that, it's important to live in the moment and fight for what's good, and importance of friendships. They realize it, it's just never stated. But you're right, I was expecting a throwback, come around, circle, whatever, to the falling
That's
girl.
What I was
right? Hal was going to be the one holding him, or Gabe was going to be holding Hal, or some other situation where it was hands holding.
Yeah.
But that is a missed opportunity for sure, because anyone who sees this movie remembers that scene the most, right? So why not bring it back later?
To kind of show all their cards in the first 10 minutes of the movie.
It's such a good scene, though. I watched it so many times.
Yeah. But yeah, that's what I was going to say too. I thought there'd be an echoing back to, or a mirror of the beginning, that the climax would have something to do with someone dangling and someone would have to be holding on, or a piece of equipment broke or something.
A helicopter is dangling.
Wow.
Perhaps
the ladder in the scenario is Sylvester Stallone, and the helicopter is Sarah.
So deep. And she dies again because the helicopter falls.
The helicopter dies.
Like, no! I mean, I guess actually it does. John Lithgow does fall slowly and scream no and explode.
He does have a lot of time to think about his death.
Question on that note, at the beginning when Sarah falls, how long do you think she was alive thinking about her death?
Too long.
4,000 feet. Max velocity is like 9.8 meters per second.
If this is a math question, just you're gonna have to work it out yourself.
I'm gonna say anywhere between 20 to like 40 seconds. She had a lot of time to think. I feel like we've talked about everything we need to talk about in this movie, man. Like, we hit the high points. Human toboggan, stalactite, stabby.
All right, so are we ready to get to high points and low points?
I think we're ready. We've definitely said all there is to say about that movie. Okay, so I have a couple. I mean, the high point is it's going to be the opening for me, but because it's so obvious, I'm going to go with the fact that we are to believe that Sylvester Stallone catches a rabbit, attaches a tracker from one of the money cases to a rabbit, and then sets it free. Jen is reacting.
How did I forget this?
I love it. And then Travers is going insane, chasing a bunny around the mountain, and he can't figure out why the case is moving. And then he shoots at the bunny and he misses. And then the bunny's like, F you, and hops away. And I'm like, yeah, bunny, get it.
Apparently the rabbit was shot in other cuts of it, and then people had that reaction.
Good.
Thank God you said in other cuts. I thought you meant like the real rabbit was shot on set. Oh, fuck.
I'm glad they changed it. I would not have been okay if they had shot that rabbit.
No.
So my high point is the bunny actor. And my low point, it never stops bothering me the entire movie that we're supposed to simultaneously believe how cold it is and how ill-prepared they are. Like, the realities of hypothermia and how quickly you lose function, how quickly you lose mental function. Like, you shut down slowly. Like, it just really bothers me. I wish they had made some kind of comment like, oh, it's unusually warm this couple days. Something. Or we have gloves, we're just not wearing them at this moment. You know, like some kind of acknowledgement that this is so unbelievable.
But then they'd kept saying, like, because of the storm, we can't land anywhere. So there can't simultaneously be a storm and unseasonably warm. Right. Which is my issue with the weather, where I'm like, I don't understand what temperature it is anywhere.
That's it. Those are my high and low. Pretty straightforward this time.
Yeah. I think the opening is probably my high point as well. Which, probably isn't surprising. And then my low point... It's hard to choose. There's a few that I really don't like.
Oh, Dolly.
I mean, I didn't even talk about how bad all the effects in this movie are, but like all the...
Didn't you just?
I mean, it's rough. There's a few times where it's like, were they even outside? I'm pretty sure a lot of this movie was filmed in front of a green screen. I mean, which I know is like pre-green screen, so which is even worse. Like, how did you make this look worse? I don't know. Sometimes the forest just didn't look real.
The snow too had a real like fake quality to it a lot of the time.
And then like the backgrounds like in the toboggan scene was especially brutal, her falling. Like when they had to make when things were moving quickly, it looked real bad. So that's a nominee, and so is the innocent deaths. But I think my low point is just like John Lithgow, like all the villains, all of them. Like they're just pointless. They don't have any motivation. There's no, like you made a good point when like he's being built up to be this nefarious guy, and like we don't see any of that. We don't see him be a supervillain. Like he's just, I don't know, a lame guy. And I don't like how aggressive they are. I don't like how kill happy they are. Like I understand that they're bad guys and they're gonna kill people. I understand that, and that's fine, but like not so unmotivatedly, you know?
Yeah, they're all very hair trigger for no reason.
Yeah. So I think that's my low point.
That's fair.
I think my high point is the human toboggan. It was insane, and I know we'd already said like the beginning was very well done and it was legitimately good, but the human toboggan scene was like insane good, and I feel like the movie just had to pick which lane it wanted to be of those two.
Yeah.
You guys have chosen the legitimately good. I will choose the toboggan. It's fine. My low point is, I guess, similar to Austin, just the fact that I felt like no one really had a plan that made sense at any given point. I was really struggling to understand, like, what their end goal was, what their motivation was, specifically the bad guys, like how they were trying to get out of this and why they were doing what they were doing. And then even with the good guys, like with Stallone's big showdown at the end with him in a helicopter, I was like, this doesn't really make any sense. Like, yes, you're throwing the money into the helicopter blade to destroy it, but then now you're just gonna fight him on a ladder? And, like, Hal was just hiding the whole time, not doing anything. He didn't even come out to get Jessie to safety. Like, what was your guys' plan? Like, it just, no one knew what they were doing, and it bothered me.
Quotes?
Yes, quotes. Yes. The first one I have is when a guy gets shot while they're in the airplane, and they're like, what are we gonna do? And they go, get him to a hospital, fast. And then he pushes him out of the plane. I'm like, okay. Quaylen's a bad guy, FYI. One of my favorite Stallone lines is when they're burning money for heat, and he goes, it costs a fortune to heat this place. Like, you son of a bitch. You got me. I do love one line. So the guy's name is Kynette or Kinnett. I can't remember. He's the gentleman who was impaled on a stalactite.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yes.
And he goes, it amazes me in this day and age that a man will put money before the personal safety of himself and his bitch.
I hated him so much.
I laughed so hard. I was like, this is just an intellectual commentary. And then he's like, and his bitch. It's funny. Apparently I'm the only one who thought so. Also at one point, Gabe and Jessie are doing some kind of lowering themselves. We didn't even catch this, but they're lowering themselves on an ancient rope they got from the cabin, which is very thin looking and appears to be 100 years old. And she goes, this rope is 6 years old. Will it hold? And he goes, probably not. And then they jump off the side of a cliff. And I'm like, maybe not the best idea. Ugh. If you do not think it's going to work, maybe don't do it. But I have to say, that's another thing we didn't talk about, how often they're using bare hands on ropes. Yeah. Not
I feel like we covered it with the gloves. Like, they should be wearing gloves.
Still. Oh, God. This is the worst line, but also the best. Right before Eric Quaylen drops to his death in his helicopter tomb, Sylvester Stallone says, remember, shithead, keep your hands and feet inside the vehicle at all times. Guys.
Hated that.
Amazing.
I like how that's what they echoed back from the beginning.
It's so stupid. I do like when one of the stoners is talking to Gabe, and Gabe's like, I've been working up in Denver. And the stoner goes, man, I hate work, even when somebody else is doing it. I think I'm going to stop there. There's a bunch of stupid lines, but those are my favorites.
All right. So budget was $70 million, and worldwide gross was $255 million. So, one kind of cool fact is that this movie is in the Guinness Book of World Records as having the most expensive aerial stunt ever performed. So, the stuntman, his name was Simon Crane, he was paid $1 million to cross once between two planes at 15,000 feet without the aid of any safety devices or trick photography. So, the insurance company apparently refused to insure the stuntman for this. So Sylvester Stallone offered to reduce his own fee for the movie by whatever amount would cover it. So that stunt was filmed in the United States. The rest of the movie was filmed in Italy because it was illegal to film it in Europe. So yeah.
Oh, it was illegal to film the stunt in Europe. Okay.
Yeah. Again, Stallone coming in with his own money. And I mentioned before how originally it had a scene where that rabbit was killed by gunfire, and Sylvester Stallone invested $100,000 of his own money to have the scene reshot.
I mean, honestly, I wouldn't have liked this movie if the bunny died.
The credits include a message that say, I guess the harness that Sarah wears at the beginning, the company is Black Diamond. And so there's like a little message in the credits saying that the Black Diamond harness was specially modified in order to fail. So I guess they had to cover all their bases. Like, don't worry, it's still a good harness.
Yeah.
For real.
Yeah.
I was surprised they had a brand associated with it at all. It should have been generic harness.
Yeah, you would think. Oh, a couple of alternate Quaylen actors. Do you guys want to take some shots in the dark at who's some other... Well, there's someone who was originally supposed to. and someone who was the director's dream or first choice to play.
I'm just gonna dive into the Jackie movie repertoire and go with, like, Ed Harris.
I was gonna say, you will not find either of them in the, well, one of them. Definitely not the dream casting.
Like
Jackie's
Jack
movie repertoire.
Nicholson. I have no idea.
So Christopher Walken was originally cast.
Ooh, nice.
Oh,
That would have been awesome.
and
He would have been very much more intimidating.
And had to turn down eventually. And then Renny Harlin, the director, apparently his first choice to play Quaylen was none other than David Bowie.
Whoa!
Okay, first of all, relatable, because David Bowie should be your first choice for everything. But also, what? I mean, dream big, buddy, you know?
For some reason, I'm picturing, like, the Goblin King in a ski vest. Love it. Into it. Is he using the, like, glass balls while he's waiting? I'm in.
Do we know, Austin, like, did he send this script to David Bowie?
I have
like,
no idea. I have no
him?
idea if that's true. That is a random fact on IMDb, but I have to believe it's true.
Same, and I have to believe that they tried really hard to get Bowie in. He was just like, no.
Yeah.
If he was in this movie, I would love it a million times more.
So for the opening scene, where Sarah slips out of her glove to her death, his grip apparently was so tight that she couldn't get her hand to slide out of the glove. So eventually, like, they filmed it a bunch of times, they tried it a bunch of times. Eventually they ended up putting a glove on her that was way too big for her and lining it with Vaseline, and like, it still almost didn't slide off. So I guess Sylvester Stallone, if you're gonna fall off a cliff, you do want him around.
He must have hurt her hand, though.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. Like, you know, it's acting, right? You don't actually have to grip her like your life depends on it.
No, she is only 3 feet off the ground. She'll land on her feet. It's okay.
Bold of you to assume Sylvester Stallone is acting.
True.
Interesting.
He thought all of this was really happening.
Oh, that's so tragic for him. He's like, all my friends are dead.
Okay. Do you guys want to take a guess numbers crack at the body count?
Oh, okay.
I'm going to say 18.
Yeah, I'm in the teens. I'm going to go a little lower. I'm going to say 15.
Jackie is closer. It was, 18. Jackie's closer, but Jen wins by Price is Right rules. It was 17.
Oh, close without going over.
Yeah.
I still win.
Sure.
That's
it's
all
not very high, right? Because it's a limited environment. You can't have that many.
Yeah. It's basically like,
I mean,
all the bad guys, the people on the plane, the one base jumper, and Frank.
And there were only that many bad guys to kill them.
And Sarah.
Again, so.
Oh, right, and Sarah. I forgot about her.
That's all I got.
So this movie came out in 1993, and so has many of Jackie's other movies, including Demolition Man. Sylvester Stallone had a busy year.
And you know what? I'm going to say a bold statement. His best year.
Cliffhanger actually did do well. It was in the top 10 of the box office. Below Jackie's other pick from the year, The Fugitive.
Beautiful year, man.
Also, nothing this year came close to the #1 movie, which is Jurassic Park, which is also one of the greatest movies of all time, so.
Amazing.
All around, 1993 is a good year, and we should keep going back to it.
I mean, you should tell us about all the Oscars this movie won.
Oh, yeah. Cliffhanger won 0 Oscars. It was nominated for 0 Oscars. It was not invited to the Oscars. Sylvester Stallone has a lifetime ban from the Oscars. I'm making that last one up.
Oh my god, I was like, tell me the tea.
But no, the Oscar movies of that year, which, again, I think we've mentioned in our other 93 episodes, but Schindler's List was kind of the big winner of all major awards, basically, because it's a big deal. And then Tom Hanks for Philadelphia, he won Best Actor back-to-back 2 years in a row. He's one of the only ones to do that. And, oh yeah, Tommy Lee Jones won Best Supporting Actor for The Fugitive. So go Fugitive. That is Jackie's only, pick that is also an Oscar winner, I think.
It's not my fault that you guys just don't understand these movies and, the levels involved. It's just, I'm very intellectual.
I was about to be like, is that the only movie we've done that's actually won Oscars? No, Austin has brought multiple Oscar winners to the table.
Where are we
I
at?
have no idea.
Ratings! I mean, I'll go first, because everyone knows. 10 out of 10, 10 out of 10. I love this movie. I'm sorry. It's so stupid, but I I can't fault it for any of its stupidity, even though I understand what you're saying about like the tone very much is not right. It doesn't ever follow a steady stream. It's like goofy, trying to be serious, trying to be dramatic. It's stupid, but I love it. And I love everything about it. And I love the way it comes together. So I'll give it a 10. And I mean, I want to give it a 10 for quality, but I understand also when you really look at it and you're looking at the backgrounds, which I don't often do, it's not the best quality. It's a 1993 movie. It's not the best. So I'll give it an 8. Very easy.
Okay.
Here's where my heart breaks. Hold on, I gotta brace myself. Whew. All right, go.
Okay, again, I'm glad that I watched it with someone, since it made it slightly more enjoyable. The first scene was really good, and then it just plummeted. You might say it fell off a cliff.
Oh!
I don't know. It doesn't do it for me. I liked parts of it. I liked Jessie, and I liked Stallone. Like, he seemed, like I said earlier, he seemed likable, but overall enjoyment, like, 2.5.
Oof.
And then quality, like a 3, maybe a 4 for a couple of things, but like it was rough. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Jackie's really mad at me now.
You guys aren't friends anymore. We'll check in with the friendometer in a second. For me, I would say enjoyment. I'll give it like maybe like a 7. I was really into it. There was a lot going on. I never had any idea what was going to happen next. So I was, it captivated my attention, I will say. So I'll give it like a 7 for enjoyment. Quality, on the other hand, I think is a bit lower. I feel like this, as much as it's an entertaining movie, I would not call it a good movie. So I'll probably give it like a 4 for quality.
Yeah.
So that's my slightly better than Austin's rating, so you're not as mad at me as you are at her.
I was just thinking, like, I could probably boost enjoyment up a little. I still feel like I'm being generous on quality, but enjoyment, maybe I'll boost it up to like a 3.
Jackie?
It hurts me that it was so hard for you to boost it up to a 3.
I don't know, one or the other.
Yeah, I can't fault either of you because I knew neither of you would really like this movie. It's a very strange movie, right? And my movies, I don't ever try and please anyone. I'm just like, these are movies I like and I want to watch them and I'm going to make you watch them. So I don't ever try and tailor it for you guys. If I was trying to tailor it for you, I would know this would not be an Austin movie. Like, it's just very clear that it is not anything that Austin likes. So I'm not really surprised by the rating. So my friendometer is like green edging into yellow, but mostly green.
I think I don't usually watch movies. Like, I know, Jen, you do this sometimes where you're like, I would have preferred it this way. And I feel like I don't usually come up with the alternative movies. And I feel like for this one, like, I would have preferred just like a intense, like, thriller on the mountain. We don't need the terrorists. Let's get some other conflict.
Yeah. Even a movie about the weather in the mountains is more, like, I would have probably been more into too. Like, you don't need any of the firefight. But then it's like, why is it a Stallone movie then, right?
My friendometer's green. I'm fine.
Yeah, I'm green. I've got no problems with anyone this week.
I have problems, but, I'm feeling real goddamn unappreciated.
So you're not really sounding green version into yellow right now. You're sounding yellow version into orange.
Just saying. This is my verge, where I'm verging into yellow. I'm just like, well, these are movies I love.
No, I know. I've got
I'm joking.
more
I'm
that I'm
totally
afraid
joking.
to bring to the table, because I know. I'm still reeling. I'm still hurting from Pennies from Heaven, so... Does that bring us to what we're watching next week, which conveniently is my turn?
Ooh, Austin.
No.
I think we're going to do not really a musical, but a movie with music. We're going to do Once.
Okay.
Yeah.
Never heard of this.
I don't know if we're going to have a lot to say about it, but I think we're going to do Once.
Can you give me a hint? Like, I don't want to look it up, but I know, like, I've never heard this movie mentioned.
It's a little Irish movie.
A little Irish movie. My synopsis has been written.
So I guess that wraps up Cliffhanger then. And next week we're going to be talking about Once. If you want to follow us, you can find us on Twitter at I Hate Your Taste or on Instagram at Hate Your Taste Pod. We also have a website. It's IHateYourTasteInMovies.wordpress.com, and there are links there to our merch. And you can also find us on buymeacoffee.com/IHateYourTaste. And if you would like to support us in any way, you can do that there. Please leave us a review on iTunes or Apple Podcasts. That really, really helps. And thanks so much for listening. Bye.